In the 2007-2008 post-election violence, women and young girls suffered murder, rape, indecent assault, domestic violence, loss of livelihood, among other unfortunate incidents. Peace Initiative Kenya, PIK, a consortium of national and regional peace and gender-based violence actors led by the International Rescue Committee, IRC, together with local partners, played a major role at creating a more protective and peaceful environment in the period leading to Kenya's March 4, 2013 elections and its aftermath. The organization leveraged grassroots knowledge on issues of gender-based violence and conflict management during the electioneering period across the country. Peace Initiative Kenya has held steadfast in the fight against gender violence in Kenya. The organization brought together over 500 delegates, including various local and international stakeholders, the civil society, the Kenyan government, gender-based violence survivors, and many other players drawn from peace platforms across Kenya for a two-day forum where they engaged in rigorous deliberations on the gender-based violence crisis in Kenya. As the summit was unveiled, several objectives were in the participants' agenda. Looking at the context and management of gender-based violence situation in Kenya, identifying opportunities and commitments for prevention of gender-based violence and effective service provision, and sharing best practices and exchanging experiences in addressing the gender-based violence crisis at various levels. In her welcoming remarks, Honorable Rachel Shebesh, the Nairobi County Women Representative, called for new ways of addressing the gender-based violence issue. She vehemently recited her many encounters with gender-based violence survivors.
Please, I want to show you many women from Laikipia, from Moranga, from Kisumu, who are being beaten. And people think now it's the norm. She's just being taught a lesson. So I'm saying Karen, and the likes of Karen, who I'm seeing here today, really, honestly, if the county government could recognize them and work with them, we would stop GBV, I think. Because where we are at national level, we are too busy building baths. And I'm happy that we have a new bath in Mombasa. Our bath is a big place where ships will dock and we'll do a lot of business. But meanwhile, 45% of women in this country are going through GBV or some form of related. That's what statistics are telling us. I mean, honestly, if you watch TV, you will know something wrong. Something is very wrong. That rapists have raped women until now they're going to animals. Because they know nothing will happen to them. It is true. The gang rapes that are happening in Dandora is a rite of passage. It's a rite of passage. The gang rape that is happening in Dandora, those young men, it's a gang thing. So for you to be part of that gang, you must do this thing called kuchotwa. You must chota. And kuchotwa means a girl who has been gang raped. But meanwhile, the young men have now become part of the gang. That the police know by name, know where they sit, know where their parents live, know where their homes are. And we are celebrating what? We can never celebrate when half of our population, which is women, is crying silently. We can never celebrate.
Urging men to join in the campaign against gender-based violence, she applauded the decision by some men who were ready to make a change and were already fighting against GBV.
Why I talk harshly about men is because there are some men who are perpetrating this violence. And some women, as you say, 3%, so I don't keep mentioning them. But there are men who are tired also. Are tired and want to change this conversation. And I'm believing those are the men seated in this room today. They are fed up. They are tired of seeing their women, their daughters, their mothers. The other day I saw a grandmother taken to a hospital, a grandmother of about 80-year-old woman. When Betty says 3-month-old babies are raped, I have gone to Nairobi Women's Hospital to see for myself if this is a story, it is true, I have seen it. Women with disabilities, by the way, today I had the disability network, I think, for the deaf, speak about how deaf women are being raped. Street families are not safe. Really, we have the numbers in Parliament to make a difference.
Moving testimonies of pain and trauma experienced by gender-based violence survivors were shared during the National Forum as emotions ran high.
The fateful ordeal happened in 2007, 27th of July, here in Nairobi, where I was raped. And it was something that was planned by a very good friend of mine, somebody called my own sister. Our women are suffering. Our young girls are suffering so much. And I think I am their voice to speak out. And no woman should be ashamed to be raped, because it's not your wish, nor your will.
Policymakers had first-hand encounter with the survivors, and this would help them come up with proper action plans. The Peace Initiative project, seeking to address violence against women in the context of the 2013 general elections, was funded by United States Agency International Development, USAID. The USAID Kenya Mission Director, Karen Freeman, cited the project as an outstanding example of the Kenyan Constitution in action.
Kenya is now embarked on a new system of governance, with 47 county governments unified under a strong national government. The issues of addressing gender-based violence and promoting women's empowerment are equally relevant under devolution as they were during the election period. The venue of your effort has just shifted. I have confidence that the women and the men in this room will continue to achieve success in addressing gender-based violence, ensuring Kenya's women and Kenya's communities can move forward, free of violence and able to realize their full potential. For our part, USAID Kenya will continue to support you by integrating our efforts to prevent and respond to gender-based violence across our assistance programs, not only in health, but in governance, education, and economic growth.
The Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Devolution, Anne Waiguru, represented by Catherine Mwoki, the Director of Planning in the Ministry, presided over the opening of the forum. She spoke strongly against GBV, stating that addressing the crisis is at the center of the economic, social development agenda in Kenya.
Gender-based violence, specifically violence against women, is considered as one of the most pervasive and tolerated form of human rights violations the world over. It has devastating effects on individuals, communities, and nations, often resulting to physical, mental, and health problems. The most demeaning, however, is the denial to one's social rights as manifested in cultural practices that subject women and girls to domestic violence, female genital mutilation, and trafficking as sex slaves or unpaid workers, and at the worst, for ritual sacrifice. Ladies and gentlemen, furthermore, conflict, as illustrated the world over, impacts women and men differently. Women are among those killed, maimed, raped, or displaced during conflict. They also undergo the trauma of witnessing their children and husbands being killed and maimed by the conflict. An increasing amount of research has highlighted the health burdens, generational effects, and demographic consequences of such violence. Various programs for prevention and response have been undertaken at different levels, including the community level. Key among these include the helplines, the shelters and rescue homes, the gender-based violence recovery one-stop centers, the legal aid clinics, psychosocial support services, rehabilitation and resettlement services, as well as police gender desks. In addition, male involvement groups have been formed to champion the rights of women, by using fathers, brothers, husbands, and friends to serve as advocates to end gender-based violence within their communities and society as a whole. These interventions have provided a solid base for shifting social norms that have perpetuated violence against women, hence demonstrating potential for lasting social changes. Ending violence also requires the change of mindsets at family and community levels to ensure that preventing gender-based violence becomes everybody's responsibility. Empowering women economically through initiatives such as the Women Enterprise Fund, we also need to ensure evidence-based documentation of best or promising practices. The campaign against gender-based violence also requires effective and well-coordinated service delivery to survivors of sexual gender-based violence, as well as prevention. Finally, I wish to state that the government is committed and will continue to provide leadership and to strengthen partnerships towards implementation of the relevant laws and policies, provisions of comprehensive services for victims and survivors, and to promote the collection of comprehensive and systematic data to better inform policy and programming and building of strong coalitions and strategic partnerships.
The ball had been set rolling, and it was now time to get into the core of the forum. Gender-based violence was cited as a crisis in Kenya, and all were called upon to unite against it. The issue of cost management of gender-based violence in the health sector could not be ignored. The type of costs incurred from dealing with gender-based violence were highlighted, ranging from tangible to non-tangible costs, which were viewed as deterrents to the government's efforts in nation building.
Within the health sector, you'll find facilities, those who are able to collect forensic samples, they are collected, but they are not passed on to the next chain of command, as we say, the chain of custody of evidence. It needs to be passed on from the health facility to the government chemist, but that has to be through the police.
Legal and judicial interventions in gender-based violence managing came out clearly. Fingers are more often than not pointed at law enforcers, and the Kenya Police Service was here to lead us into the process of police response and action in processing gender-based violence complaints.
I'm sick and tired of sitting at police headquarters and advising police officers what to do. And the questions they ask me, I have no answer. Much as we have advice from the DPP, which is professional advice, much as we have activists talking out there, much as we have everything in place, decorated papers and decorated ranks, we are suffering from within as police officers. Why are we suffering? Because year in, year out, I talk about the facilitation of the investigating officer.
Teachers were also represented, and they addressed the issue of incorporating gender-based violence in the education sector.
Every other day I see a report from the press about in this and this school, this and this teacher has violated a child, has sexually abused a child. If I were to ask each individual in this place, I am sure you have a case you'd relate to, or you have a case you'd be able to quote. All those teachers spread across all the parts of this country, and the Teacher Service Commission, whose main budget goes to remuneration. If you ask the Exchequer about resources for responding, I believe we would not even get a response. They would keep quiet, because that is not the business of the Commission. And that takes us to what Madam Marcela said. Because it is sexual abuse cases are actually criminal cases, and we have systems that are so